So how is Akhandakara vritti different from other vrittis? Okay, so simple answer. Other vrittis, when you see a thought, when you see an object, like a pot, it literally creates an object in your mind, which is localized to this much. It's not over here, it's only over here. It's not over here, it's only over here. So a common vritti, even if you have a spiritual experience, you walk away with a, much kind of a, open heart. They say you open heart. That too is some form of a thought, just a more kind of a dispersed out thought throughout the mind. So that too is a vritti which left an image, but not so much of a concrete image, more of a sensation image, more of a experiential image, a sensation or a feeling. Now, Akhanda Akara vritti is also a vritti. Never mind about Akhandakara. It's also a vritti, so it shows us that something happens in your mind. That means your mind is involved for knowledge to take place of who you are. But what kind of a vritti is it? It is Akhanda Akara. It is not a vritti that leaves an image. That means it's a formless thought. Now, how can you have a formless thought? Every thought has to have some form, because it cancels out an existing notion that you have in your mind. So you got all these notions about who you are, about, I am, and then on top of that, all these other things on the I am. So this kind of removes it all. It cancels out. No, you're not, you're not these things. And there's one final thought after hearing enough that comes to a point and it's removed enough of those notions in the mind, then it becomes absolutely clear. You go, okay, I get it. Maybe a better way to understand, a different way, is maybe if you remember maths class, and the teacher was trying to explain the formulas and read them out, and you're like, I don't get it, but I don't get it. And the teacher just had to keep on adding more formulas, more calculations, and then at some point you can see one student starting to pop. It started to pop. So enough information was given that you were able to accurately understand what was being conveyed. Okay? So Akhandakara vritti is just a technical name stating that there's nothing left in your mind. And the reason this is important is so that you don't end up thinking that moksha leaves some image of Atma. I'll give you an example. There was one time where I was, after meditating, a lot, naturally you will come, very sharp. The mind will become very sharp. And it left me an amazing impression. And it says, I found Atma. It's right here in the traditional Chinese call it Dantian. And I was like, wow, I found my center. And it was literally a sensation down here. And every time I connected with it, it was just, you felt very strong and secure and reassured about oneself. And so that is also a thought, but it's localized. Okay? So we are not talking about a sensation anywhere in the body, anywhere in the mind. It is just, it's a lack of all of that. It's just a general kind of, I get it. I get where things belong. I just get where things belong. You're not putting things onto the world. You just see, world, here's what the nature of the world is. Self, here's the nature of the self. And you see the connections. So there's no sense of attachment, little dependencies. I'm depending on one thought, on another thought, on my experience with that guru, There's no dependency on any kind of experience, on any kind of thought. I'm Brahman. I'm all pervasive. Wow, I love that thought. I'm all pervasive. I love that thought. Right? Let me hold on to that. And that also starts to wane away. The power of that starts to wane away. And you go like, what else can I think about Brahman? Okay, Brahman is nirgunam. Okay, no, it's not so inspiring. Maybe Brahman is the truth of the universe. Oh, I like that. I'm the truth of you all. That makes me feel powerful, right? So now let me hold on to that. And that too starts to wane out. You see how always holding on to a thought. This is not holding on to any thought whatsoever. So this is Akhanda Akara vritti. Phalavyapti is just a technical name for something is seen or recognized for the first time ever. Okay? You know about yourself all along. What you don't know right now is a thought that's going to come in 5 minutes from now. But you know about yourself, your I am, your evident consciousness, right? That which is always evident, always available, always present. Let me ask you a question. What is the most evident, the most present, and the most ever available thing in your life? Right? You say, I am. I am. Now, that I am is not referring to the mind. It's referring to Atma. That's where we go wrong. We go, oh, yeah, but there's nothing special about it. That's the whole point. Because your notions are saying, but this I am, so what? This I, you see how it is? So what? That's how it discards it. So what? That means it's still carrying, mixing up awareness with the body-mind that you knew about all along. So you're like, I am. What's the big deal? So you already know that you are. I don't have to tell you that you exist, that you're aware. Are you aware? Are you aware? See, if you say no, that's a contradiction, isn't it? Because just the fact that you're responding means you're aware, right? So if I just ask you, are you aware? Yeah, and? So the fact that you're aware, now you can't say that awareness is for the first time ever. Therefore, it cannot be palavyapti. It's just a recognition that that which was always available to me, which was most familiar, ever present, ever true, the nearest of the nearest Upanishads, the nearest of the nearest to me, that was all there is to it. That was the final reality that the scriptures keep talking about. The scriptures keep talking about Brahman, Brahman, Brahman. Wow, what is this Brahman? That which is always evident, ever present, ever true, never changes, always available to you, which is you, because you are in every single thought. Can you find one thought where you're not in it? You're even in the meditation. You're in the absence of thoughts. When there's no thoughts, who's there? What is there? Not who's there, but what is there in the absence of thoughts? Whatever you want to call it. I am there.
I think we got confused with the explanation that it's aha moment, it's the understanding.
Yeah, it's more like not an aha. Aha is...
It's just the understanding moment, that's why we got confused.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so what did I say? Aha. Aha is, what did I say? Palavyapti. Palavyapti is aha.
It's understanding, right? You've got that point of understanding.
Yeah, but you don't go, aha, now I'm aware for the first time ever. So it's not palavyapti.
It's not an experience also.
Yeah, because only experience gives you aha. So suppose I say, hey, Ili, there's a dinosaur behind you. Turn. Aha, there's a dinosaur behind me. Okay? It's for the first time ever. But I don't have to say to you that you are right now. You know that already. So you're not aware for the first time ever. So I want you to think about the implications of what this means. There will never be a time in your life when you're aware for the first time ever. Then what is there to look forward to? What is there to wait? Like, I'm waiting for moksha tomorrow, a year from now. Right? Because that's what moksha, that's what this whole thing is about. Like, I'm supposed to wait and wait for that magical moment when for the first time I'm going to go, aha, now I got it. See, just that you're asking a question now, you're asking a question, the mind's asking a question, but that mind's beautifully lit up. It's just lit up by you. Awareness. That's why the mind's capable of asking the question. Therefore, you can't say that you're not aware. Okay, anything else? Going back to verse 5. The context was that we introduced Satya Mithya. Why did we do this? Because it is a prakriya to analyze the nature of reality, by which we can look at an object, we can analyze it, its ontological status, and we can come to the final reality, which we haven't done yet. And in verse 6, we will continue this now. All right, so now in verse 6, then, continuing, it used the Satya Mithya relationship between your dream and your mind. So this means while dreaming and having all these characters and themes and love and dinner and hate and wars and house and building and hard work and smiles and the whole marriage thing and the kids, all this is happening in the dream. And it all relies or depends upon one mind. Therefore, the dream becomes mithya, which has no existence without the mind, while the mind remains independent of the dream. Because the dream can resolve upon waking, but the mind continues absolutely fine. Okay? So now, when you come to this real world, then you take refuge and you say, I'm so glad that my dream was mithya, and that this is satyam. In other words, my dream was depending upon the waking. Because where are the contents of your dream from? Where do you get all of those faces and all those stuff from the dream? From the waking. So in that sense, the dream depends upon the waking. The pratibhasika, the subjectivities, depend upon the empirical world, the vyavaharika. Now, most stop at vyavaharika. Vedanta says it is not the final thing, there is one more reality. Verse 7, Tavat satyam jagat bhati sukti kara jatam yatha yavat na jnayate brahma sarvadhishtanam advayam. The purpose of the previous verse was to demonstrate that the dream is your subjective reality. And we call that pratibhasika. And that subjective reality, it was, while the dream lasted, taken as the absolute. That's the only thing you knew about in the dream. For you, the dream was, as we said, paramartika, the absolute. Now we woke up and we think that this world, this vyavaharika world, is again paramartika. So the verse wants to analyze and show you that this very world that you're in is also mithya. That means there is something much greater than the forms, much bigger than the forms that we see. Okay, so what the verse says is that due to ignorance of the final satyam, the final reality, due to that ignorance of not knowing Atma to its fullest, not knowing the reality, because we never knew the reality, because of ignorance of the final reality, what happens? Atyasa. So this means two things happen. I have ignorance about, there is ignorance about avidya. So the verse uses avidya, I think. Avidya, so that means ignorance. Okay? Ignorance of the rope leads to what? Superimposition of the snake. So ignorance gives birth to superimposition. And therefore, when you see superimposition, the snake, you don't see the nature of what it actually is. And what is creating the superimposition? Is the rope doing it? What's creating it? Your own mind. So as long as my mind has ignorance of the rope, my mind, not your mind, will create superimposition, and I will act accordingly to that rope. My whole life will be like it's a snake. Therefore, I will treat it not according to how it really is. And then I will call myself rational. This is why we have people superimposing these big ideas because they have partial knowledge, avidya, about a subject matter, and then it will start these huge protests, and they will say, we're rational. Why? Because they're literally protesting against an idea that's created, a superimposition. So avidya creates adhyasa. Adhyasa, superimposition. Imposition. So what came first? Did superimposition come first? Or did ignorance come first? Ignorance come first. What do you see right now? Suppose you say the world. That's a superimposition, because this is not the world. You're not seeing the world. All that is here is one, right now. And yet the individual says, I see the world. Why? Because I have always been ignorant since beginningless time. Therefore, every lifetime I called this world, this person, this person. So avidya gives birth to adhyasa. And that's why the whole world is acting, that's why everyone in this world is acting according to their idea of what this is. All that is here is Brahman. And yet, I talk about and I study the world. I talk about the world. I study the world, microscope world, big world, cosmos world, stars world, planets world, discussions world, class world, Vedanta world. The whole thing is one. But I see it as a superimposition, owing to not knowing what is going on right now. Therefore, we miss out the final reality. And that's why the search continues. Search continues. Why? Where am I searching? I'm searching in my superimposition. Never ends. Now, as I said before, it doesn't really matter if I have this adhyasa towards a black hole or something. You know, if I don't know, if I see a snake on a belt, it doesn't matter. What's just a big deal? Oh, oops. Go back home in your safe pillow and cover yourself. But when there's a superimposition over myself, which is the truth of the whole thing, then I see myself as the body. I'm a small person. I go inside the world to please myself, to try to merge with things, try to merge with him, with her, with that. And I find it doesn't really last. It cannot really be attained. It doesn't, it has no substance. It becomes really just a normal thing, business as usual. And then I continue again searching. So when I don't know Atma, the consequences are huge. Because a superimposition makes me become a doer, an enjoyer, a knower. And so we take a profession according to that. I become a knower of science, knower of that, knower of this. I become a entertainer, I become whatever, all of that because I'm seeing the world as a superimposition, not as it actually is. Now, this can produce two kinds of consequences. If my superimposition is pleasant, then what will I do? Oh yeah, let's go in the world. That's a good thing, right? Or is it? Or if my superimposition is not so pleasant, what will I do? World. Distance myself from the world. The world, look at this, self-reinforcement. The world is not a good place. I want to find Brahman over here. The world. Superimposition. Whose superimposition is it? My own. So this means I am creating the world, a superimposition out of my own era. And then trying to find Brahman, which is now double reinforcement, then the final reality is localized over here in my little private pratibhasika bubble and not throughout here in this world. This is how we just fool ourselves one after another trick. Okay. Now let's analyze the process according to the verse. So it uses the example of silver and shell. Now, first thing that we have to do, if you walk on a beach And have you ever had an experience where there's something shiny and you think it's, you know, a silver or a coin or maybe a gold or something, and you run over happily and you come there and you go, it's not silver, it's just a shell. So first step that I have to do is remove my personal subjectivities. Because I won't even suppose it's a different kind of a thing, and I suppose I literally see it, or somehow I see it as a silver. Then I can't even begin my analysis into this. Because where am I beginning my analysis? In silver. But it's not silver, it's a shell. So whatever analysis I have around this silver, it's not keeping with Vyavaharika. It's keeping with my own ideas, with my own ignorance. So any kind of analysis that I perform in my own bubbles is never going to remove the superimposition. So first step, we have to get rid of our personal bubbles, pratibhasika. That's what the example says here. I see a silver, in other words, subjective reality. When I come closer, when I see it a little bit more, when I gain more information, what happens? I see now the empirical reality called shell. Now, if we go further, let's analyze the shell. We have something like this. Let's do it on the board. So, we started with a pratibhasika. Pratibhasika, what's silver, right? Silver. So what's the first step? We have to come down to earth. So this means come down to earth. That means pop the bubble, pratibhasika, and see the shell. And let's do a green for Vyavaharika, which represents nature. So nature. Vyavaharika, we see a shell. Okay. Now we can't stop there because the silver was mithya, depending upon the shell, satyam. Without the shell, there's no silver. So now that I saw closer, my own pratibhasika mithya got eliminated. And now what do I see? Vyavaharika mithya. Because shell can be broken down more. Okay? So Vyavaharika. Mithya. Okay. So now if we look at a shell, we've stopped there, right? But no, the scientist is going to go further. An ordinary man may be happy with a shell. Gives to wife or something, here's a shell. Okay, nice. But now a scientist will go analyze more. They will look at a shell and say, well, a shell is also mithya because it depends upon minerals. So now minerals become satyam and shell becomes mithya. What do we say? So shell, minerals. Minerals. So minerals are satyam, and upwards is mithya. The shell is mithya. And then we go further. The minerals can be broken down into molecules. So molecules now become satyam. Okay? And this one is crossed out. This one is crossed out. It's no longer satyam. It is mithya. Now we keep going down. Molecules depend upon scientific, just basic science. We're not even at Vedanta level. Atoms, okay. So atoms now, because molecules are just a bunch of atoms put together. Atoms become satyam, and molecules are no longer satyam. Molecules become mithya. And then science, you know, by the glories of science, thank God, because they help us so much. They say, well, atoms, you know, they're made of proton, neutron, and electron, because, you know, it's basically what constitutes an atom. And therefore, atom, name and form, is cancelled out, because it's nothing but proton, neutron, and electron, which becomes satyam. And then we go even further and we go into quark. Now quark is at now the quantum physics level, even smaller. You cannot even see it. The most you can see an atom. In fact, all you can really see is the electrons. You can't really see the nucleus and the proton inside. You just see the electron around. That's what you see when you put under a microscope. So now, science already understands this relationship. This is still at science level. This is where their beauty is. They show you clearly, if you look at the world, you will see it's reducible, reducible, reducible. Your eyes are programmed to see forms. There's nothing wrong with that. They're programmed to see that. Even after you know this, are you going to start seeing atoms? No. You're still going to see the same thing. But what do you cognitively understand when you see a rock or you see a shell? It is this, it is this, it is this. Does your experience change? You suddenly have, whoa, atoms, right? Exactly the same. Cognitive, mature understanding, seeing through the object cognitively. The object remains exactly the same. There was nothing right or wrong about the object. Owing to my stopping at the shell, I had a relationship that went this far. When I introduce a pramana, it shows me there's more. Now, quantum physics says we do not know what the final building block is. We're still trying to find it. And the truth is, you will never find a final building block because the final building block is not a form. All of this is subject to perception and inference. Perception and inference. That means you still need instrumentation to look at it and inference formulas to look at the smaller constituents. We don't know what it is, says quantum physics. And that's where Vedanta takes over. So this is now at the bottom, all Vedanta. So I'll just go up, I'll just, on this side, I'll do it. So the verse uses the word adhishtana. Okay. Okay, so what he wants to show is that Vedanta shows you two more things, two more realities after this model. This is all science. It shows you Ishvara, and it shows you Brahman. In this text, it's called Atma. I'm not going to use Brahman because let's stick with the text. And Atma. Remember, Atma is just awareness. Awareness. Okay? So, let's look at it first like this.
And Ishvara is intelligence.
I'm going to get to Ishvara, yeah. So, let's look at it like this. The word Adhisthana in the verse says it's a cause, the final building block of all things is a causeless cause, Adhisthana. That means nothing causes it. Look at this. A shell, what causes the shell? The minerals. What causes the minerals? Molecules. What causes the molecules? Atoms. What causes the atoms? Proton, neutron, electron. On and on and on and on. Final building block, you can't say that. You can't say something else created the final thing. Adhisthana, the final building block of the universe. Now, what's important is that because you see a shell, you can't say that there's no final building block. Because what would happen is, logically, if you look at it, if shell depends on this and minerals depends on molecules and atoms, quarks and this and this and this and this, and there's no final building block, then you wouldn't see a shell. So this means it has to end somewhere because the point is I see a shell. But how far do I see? I see all the way up to quarks. Now, just because I see up to quarks doesn't mean that's where it stops. Science is still trying to figure it out. So there has to be a final Adhisthana. How do you prove that? Just the fact that there is a shell, it ends somewhere. What I see is just shell, but reduce. Where does it stop? Now Vedanta takes over and it says, okay, it starts with Ishvara. So what is the next level upon which all of this depends upon? And the answer is Ishvara. What is... Oh, good. What is Ishvara? Ishvara is all knowledge and all power. In one short term, intelligence. So let's look at a form. Every form here, how is this form organized? Is it just a bunch of random atoms put together? Like a randomness put together? Or it's put together in such a way that it produces a molecule such as 2 atoms and 1 hydrogen, 2 H2O, right? 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. Why not 3? Why not 4? Because if you go 1 atom out or in, it's not going to be H2O, it's not going to be water anymore. So at every level of assembly, we see there is an intelligent organization of the quark, which is putting itself together intelligently to manifest as the hydrogen, as the proton, neutron, electron, putting itself together to manifest as an atom. Atoms are putting themselves together to manifest as molecules, molecules together, all the way to manifest minerals, minerals together, all the way to manifest a shell. And how many functions does a shell have, at least in the ocean? It's curved just right to optimize the flow of water going against it. It's hard just enough so that a certain fish cannot just break it. And it's smooth inside, and it's got patterns outside. Is this random? Could you do this? The work of intelligence. Yeah, so we're talking at the quantum level where, depending, we're not talking about the atom, we're talking about particles like electron, proton, and neutron. So basically, if you, shoot those particles through one point, you would expect them to go straight. But actually, they end up going in random directions. You can't predict which direction they're going to go. That's one experiment. Right. The second experiment, how many experiments they did on this, I don't know, but we don't need to go into science. We don't need to go into science. Okay? So what I want to show you specifically is the dependency nature here, satya mithya nature. Okay? So we can discuss science all we want, details, but ultimately it's going to be this depends on that. That's what we're showing. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. So if we look at any form, we see that there is a certain coming together, manifesting. This intelligence manifests to form, to organizes itself, to manifest as the smallest of the smallest of the smallest particle, quark. Intelligence. According to Vedanta, intelligence organizes itself because you can't find a final building block. It's not like belief. You just look and you go reduce, 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 reduce. And in quantum physics, already at the level of the particle, it becomes fuzzy. Is it a wave or a particle? It already becomes fuzzy relationship. So the smaller you go, the more abstract it becomes. The higher you go, the more tangible it becomes. Now, Ishvara is not only the intelligence which is manifesting itself as forms, which are organizing themselves intelligently to manifest as the smallest particle, and that smallest particle, quark, which is nothing but intelligence, organizes itself intelligently to manifest as the next assembly upwards, atom. Atoms organize themselves intelligently to manifest as molecules. Molecules organize themselves intelligently all the way to a shell and all the way to your physical brain. Same atoms organizing on one hand to manifest simple things like a shell. Those same atoms manifest as a complex human brain. Now look at this. At the level of the atom, it's a very simple world, isn't it? It's all one at the level of the atom. Atoms everywhere. How much is there to understand at the level of the atoms? The moment you start to organize, put atoms together, what happens? Oh, now we got different molecules, more complexity, more things to study. You got now two-ness at the level of molecules. Molecules come together to form minerals. Even more complexity. Now there's mega duality there. That organizes to form different stones, different rocks, leaves, flesh, human brain. How much complexity is there in the human brain? So much more than at the level of the shell, so much more than at the level of the atom. The more complex, the more you have to study the subject. That's why brain surgeons study years. What are they really studying? Coming together, an intelligent assembly of atoms coming together. If you're studying merely, rocks, you don't have to know much there. So much simpler. Now, Ishvara is also this intelligence manifests as laws. These laws, such as psychological order, which is making you sit right now, which is making you sane, which is making you be able to understand this right now, making you, do the right thing. Physiological laws, biological laws, chemical laws, all of these laws, which are not just in you, where are these laws? They are everywhere, in everyone. And amidst these laws, these forms, which are intelligently put together, they're able to interact together and do what these forms are doing. They're able to connect together, interface together. So intelligence is Ishvara, all knowledge and all power. And this intelligence that manifests, it manifests as this world. And what do you do in this world? You move, you talk, you meet people, you start something, you end something. So they're all possibilities of Ishvara. And by the choices that you collapse is the kind of possibility that you end up attracting to yourself. So you're offered infinite possibilities. That's what Ishvara is. Infinite because it's knowledge. It's total knowledge. All knowledge. Constantly reshuffling itself to account for the constant changes that are happening in the world. Like this being dropped right now. This is nothing but pot, nothing but clay, nothing but atoms, nothing but particles, nothing but intelligence manifesting as this little useful object. Has anything changed now that I know that this is nothing but intelligence? No. Now look at this. Ishvara is not, so suppose you say now, well, if everything is Ishvara, then doesn't that mean that we contaminate Ishvara? Because there's a lot of, stuff happening at this level. Right? Isn't Ishvara the most loaded thing there is? Because all of these things that are going on in the world, if everything resolves into Ishvara, then Ishvara has to be the most loaded being. Intelligence has to be like, full of ignorance and full of all these ideas. No. Because look at this. Atom, the same atom that manufactures the germ, a bacteria, a life-threatening bacteria, is the same atom that manufactures antibodies. How is that possible? So what does this mean? Atom is free of the bacteria and it's free of the antibodies. Atoms create germs, bacteria. Atoms also create an intelligent human brain. So if the atom is free of the attributes of the bacteria, free of the attributes of the brain, then what to say about everything underneath the atom, the particles? You understand this?
No.
So what I'm talking...
Yeah, I think if everything comes out of the atom, then everything must be in the atom as well.
No.
If all is one, then everything is
No. So let me just put this again. The conversation I'm having now is, the question was, if everything comes out of intelligence, does that then not mean that intelligence is bearing all of this stuff that's happening at this level, right? All of the adharma and all of the problems and all of that. The answer that I said was using the atom. So let's take an ordinary atom. We got atom. Okay. Now let's just take hydrogen atom. Okay. Now this atom is inside a germ, or it was called a bacteria. Bacteria. Make sense? The same atom is inside, what should we say? Something that's really useful. Huh?
Medicine.
What?
Medicine.
Medicine. Okay, medicine. Medicine. All right. So this means that medicine, right? Bacteria cannot be inside the atom, otherwise it will spoil the medicine. Clear? So the atom has to be free of the attributes of bacteria, free of the attributes of the medicine, free of the attributes of everything that it creates, in order for the atom to be free to come together and create something totally different. Otherwise, if you look at, if the atom was, you would see what bacteria inside medicine, medicine inside bacteria will just be all mixed up. Free of attributes. Let me do this a little bit easier. Look at this. The minerals are free of the attributes of the shell. Because minerals can create a shell, they can create a rock, they can create ruby, they can create all sorts of rocks. So if you want to put one attribute to a mineral, then that attribute would have to be across all stones. In that case, we wouldn't have different rocks. The molecules have to be free of the minerals. The atoms have to be free of the molecules. That's why they're able to manifest as different things. And therefore, intelligence, you can keep doing this all the way down. Intelligence has to be free of everything else. Otherwise, show me logic. Otherwise, if intelligence took on an attribute or was some kind of a material, then you would see that material inside a tree. And the tree, or not only would you see it inside somewhere in the tree, but also that since everything's made out of knowledge, it could not manifest as different things. So this means what kind of material is intelligence? Because this is easy. This is, atoms. We kind of get, it's a name and form. But what kind of a material is intelligence? Not like any material that you and I know of. It has to be free of all possible materials to manifest as different materials. As I said, the logic is, otherwise, you would see, for example, if Ishvara was ruby, then you would see rubies everywhere. But you don't see rubies everywhere. You see different things, totally different from rubies.
When we say it's free of attributes, do we also exclude the word it's in potential?
A potential. So we're not at potential yet. We're just talking about... What do you mean by that, actually? Just say it again.
Okay, when we say the atom is free of attributes.
Yeah.
So...
Of everything upwards.
Everything upwards.
Ah.
But can we still say there's something in potential?
Okay, good. So I understand the question. So, beautiful. So let's take a seed, okay? Apple seed, for example. Seed is nothing but atoms under the scientific model. If it was nothing but atoms, then it would always manifest as the same thing. So I see in this seed, and I see in this seed, the apple seed and a pear seed, I see atoms. I crunch them up, I just see powder. Both powder. But what is this seed going to produce? Apple, completely different than this seed. So this means that intelligence is inside the seed of an apple, and intelligence is this also inside the pear seed, hiding the intelligence of the apple, and from the standpoint of the apple, it's hiding the intelligence of the pear. Otherwise, you have a pear and an apple. So what does this power have to do? It has to hide information. Otherwise, you can't have all trees, all fruits grow together. So from the standpoint of an apple seed, I have to hide information of a pear, of a, avocado, of this and that and this, right? I have to hide all of that and only include intelligence for an apple. That's why you get an apple. So this means that intelligence is constantly manifesting itself from potential into manifest, little by little by little. Now, suppose you crunch that seed up. Where is intelligence? Where do you see intelligence? It's nowhere. You just see powder. And yet there is intelligence. Specific kind of intelligence assigned for a specific kind of a tree, because that's the kind of a tree that will grow. So intelligence is always in potential, manifesting as the final product.
But then why does it change so slowly?
That's because of the order. That's how the setup is. We just say that's Ishwara's setup. Because if it was not changing so slowly and it was changing very fast, what could you ask then?
Why
So there's always going to be an answer. Yeah. Okay, ask me this question after class, because I feel what's happening is we're still at the level of atom and particle, but I'm not at that level. I'm just, whatever the science behind that is.
No, I'm not thinking in science now.
Right.
I'm thinking
Right. And see, no matter what the explanation is, the point is there's going to be pervasion of intelligence. Now, how the dynamics are, how it plays out, that I don't know. But the point is of the discussion, there is intelligence. In the presence of intelligence, dynamics work out, and they produce the final effect, which we then call a name and form. But that name and form, by tracing or analyzing it, level by level, there's an intelligent organization of minerals, of molecules, of atoms, of particles, all the way to intelligence. So what are we actually calling this? We're calling these names and forms all resolving into the same intelligence. That's what I want to show. Because ultimately we need to collapse the reality to the final building block. Now, is this intelligence an entity? You shook your head. No, it's not an entity. You cannot say it's some being over there, something that is punishing you, rewarding you, that's giving you a hard time, that's, blessing you. These are all kind of this language that's trying to relate to this intelligence. It's just an impersonal order that's constantly reorganizing itself, reshuffling itself to manifest as the very world that you and I experience. As I said with this example, if I drop this intelligence just reorganizing itself to bring this from here to here. You just don't see it because it happens so fast. But if we could slow it down, frame by frame, like that. It's not an entity to be visualized. Rather, it is through and through everything. It is through your very brain right now that's making you think about what is being said. That's making you shake your head. That is because of the intelligence manifesting as laws called psychological order, and therefore there's a natural impulse to agree. Now, so what Vedanta shows is that the final building block of all things is knowledge and power. Why do I say power? I talked about knowledge or intelligence. Why do I say power? Because there has to be a power to put together this knowledge to make a final product. So in that sense, there's also a power. There's an initiative, that force to put it together. Then Vedanta brings one more reality, and it says there is something even more fundamental than intelligence. And that's what the word in this verse called Adhisthana refers to, which is Atma, awareness, which is the truth of everything. And what is this final reality? So we will say here Ishvara. So remember I'm going to say quark, for example, quark. And then Vedanta takes over. We'll say now here Vedanta. So that's all Vedanta downwards. Now we have Ishvara. Ishvara, which is knowledge and power. Okay. Manifesting as laws and forms. Laws and forms which are governed by those laws. Okay? And then Vedanta says this final Adhisthana. I need to write from here. Adhisthana, which means substratum, or final building block, which is Atma, awareness. And what is this awareness? It is defined as Satyam Jnanam Ananta. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Anantam. Okay. So Satyam means the existence. What kind of existence? Not a time-bound existence, but the existence from which everything borrows. Now look at this. How do you prove this? How do you prove that even Ishvara depends on existence? Let's look at through analysis. So suppose there is shell, like a silver is, right? Silver is. Shell is. Minerals, mineral is, right? Minerals are, whatever. Molecules is. Atoms is. Neutron, proton is. Electron is. Quark is. Intelligence, because all of those that I just said is nothing but intelligence. Intelligence is. Therefore, all of them depend on, they're all mithya, depending upon is. That is satyam, existence. Existence. It's not a time-bound existence like shell existence, because that's time-bound, you destroy it, gone. It is that existence which is through and through the entire assembly, the entire hierarchy of analysis. Is. There's not a moment when you're not going to find the is. They all borrow isness. They all borrow existence. Therefore, that existence that is through and through at all levels of assembly is the final reality. Now, what kind of an existence is it? Is it just some inert existence? No. It is an awareful existence. Awareful existence. In other words, how do you prove, once again, that Ishvara depends on awareness? Because, put Ishvara aside, because we said Ishvara is intelligence. Can you have an intelligent thought without the presence of awareness? That's at the microcosm. That's now whether you go macrocosm, it's the same idea. Ishvara can put together the whole universe, but it still depends on existence. I can only put together a small class, still depend on awareness. Okay? And is there a different kind? Are there two kinds of existence awarenesses, or is there one? There's only one existence awareness. There's no two, existence and existence. Therefore, it is anantam. It is non-dual. That means it's the only thing there is. It's limitless. What limitless specifically means is there's no two. Because the moment you introduce another kind of reality, then one reality limits the other. Because I am not you, and you are not that. So it's the only thing that is. In that sense, it is Advaitam. So when we say Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, that Anantam is the same word as Advaita. It's the only thing there is. It's the whole thing. Now, here's a nice question for you. Think. Let's see how well we learned. Why is there a universe? Why is there a universe? No. In the light of what we learned, why is there a universe? Why is there a world? Why is there a world? Think. Morita, you were on the right track, I think.
To know the power of Ishvara.
Huh?
To know the power of Ishvara.
In the light of the class, why is there a world?
There is no.
Go on.
There's just manifestation of intelligence and potential flopping around in diverse forms.
See that? Why is there a world? What world? Still looking through the old vision as before.
From the level of Adhisthana, there is no world.
At the level of the final understanding, good Vishal, at the level of the final understanding, what world are you talking about? That's the superimposition, owing to not knowing. Through analysis, all that is here is Brahman, awareness. Do I see awareness everywhere now? No. I still see forms, but I understand cognitively the truth of those forms is intelligence, which has its truth in awareness, which is known to you right now as I am. Ordinary I am. An awareful presence that always is. That is never not available. The scientist wants to look at the world. That's because they're still looking at from the standpoint of superimposition. And I want to close by finally stating a common mistake is this can sometimes turn into a little of a pride thing, a little bit of an arrogance thing, where we say, oh, okay, thank you very much, so Ishvara is also Mithya, and I am Satyam. And this creates some kind of a thing. Now look at this. What is Ishvara teaching us? Because all that is here is Ishvara. Is Ishvara telling you, I am bigger than you? No. Ishvara is saying, my dear, where you see differences, I am there. I, intelligence, am pervading that. And wherever I am, that's exactly where my truth is, which is your truth also. So you, wherever you are, you're not only pervaded by me, intelligence, you're also pervaded by my truth, awareness. That's what Ishvara is teaching us. Not bigger, smaller. It doesn't work like that. There's only one. Okay? Therefore, whatever we see a form, there is Ishvara making that form what it is. Why is your form different from my form? Because of Ishvara. What's going to connect today to 100 years from now? Ishvara. Wherever I see a form, I see intelligence. The truth of that intelligence is my truth also, known to me as I am. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.